Hey, folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast live stream. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I was in a meeting, but I am meeting with you now, and that's a great place to be as we head into the weekend. Been a very eventful week. I mean, really, when isn't it an eventful week in the Middle East, the world's most chaotic, prophetic, and strategic region? But the week is kind of coming to an end in a flourish, I guess you would say. Number one, report just came across the wire before I joined you that Hamas is now saying, well, we may be willing to release a small amount of hostages next week if there is a temporary truce or a temporary ceasefire. So we shall see. In the meantime, Israel continues to wallop Hamas. The ceasefire is off, obviously, has been for a week or two, and they're hitting Hamas hard in Gaza once again. Interesting feedback. Before we get into the Hezbollah news today, real quick, I wanted to mention very interesting feedback from yesterday's live stream. Number one, if you missed it, check it out, folks, here in our archives. Just go under live or under videos. It's all right there. Incredible archaeological discovery in Israel that was recently made. Basically a pyramid-like structure in the Judean desert, right near the Dead Sea. This is really cool stuff. 2,200 years old, roughly from the time of the Maccabees, before Jesus. You're going to want to check that out. But in that same live stream, I talked about these protests in Gaza. Now, you've probably seen this the past 3 or 4 days. These are ostensibly anti-Hamas protests. A lot of, and at first glance, you say, finally, some people in Gaza, a few thousand, have risen up and said, no more Hamas. That's great. But a lot of people are leaving comments here. And by the way, you can leave a comment as well. We've got a very active and lively chat here. But a lot of people left comments for me over the past 24 hours saying, Erick, not so fast. We don't trust these so-called protesters in Gaza. I pray that it's legit and credible, and these people are truly anti-Hamas and they want peace with Israel. But a lot of people said, we think it's not legit. We think they're not genuine. And we think, yeah, they want a ceasefire, but that doesn't mean they want peace with Israel. They just don't want to be bombed anymore. What do you think? Now that I've gotten so much feedback the past 24 hours, I figured I would float that question out there to everyone watching. What do you think of these protests that have been unfolding in Gaza the last few days? Are they legit? Is this the people of Gaza, or at least a small sector at least, finally saying enough is enough? We don't want Hamas anymore. We want peace. Or is it people who, look, they may be sick of Hamas, but they don't like Israel either? What do you think? Is there something nefarious behind this? I'll say this, that, look, poll after poll since the October 7th massacre has shown that a majority of Gazans, a large majority of Gazans, yes, still support Hamas and are very supportive of what happened on October 7th, 2023. Poll after poll shows that. That's number one. Number two, in practically a year and a half since October 7th, this is the first time these past few days that we've seen even a murmur of protest against Hamas's demonic savagery in Gaza by the people of Gaza. If anything, they seem to be digging in their heels and doubling down and cheerleading for Hamas. I hope that this is a sea change that we're seeing the past few days. I hope it's legitimate. I hope it's credible. That's my prayer. The greatest alternative here, the greatest option out of all the options on the table, wouldn't it be nice if the people of Gaza rose up and overthrew Hamas? That'd be incredible. Will it happen? Who knows? But if this is credible, it could pose a threat to Hamas. Hamas could try to crush it under its jackboot, which is its MO, obviously. But all that to say, I'm watching this, and I know you're watching all this very closely, and I'd like your thoughts on it. And again, Hamas has been, or Gaza has been a cauldron of demonic violence and hatred for years and years and years. And another thing to note, that the people of Gaza voted for Hamas. Never forget, folks, 2006, the people of Gaza overwhelmingly voted for Hamas. And again, poll after poll shows their support has not abated, even since October 7th. And I'll take it back long before 2006 to, I don't know, 3,000 years ago, when the Philistines, Israel's ancient enemies, resided in Gaza. So Gaza, for thousands of years, really, has been a cauldron of hatred and violence and anti-Semitism and all sorts of demonic, ugly activity. And sadly, that continues today. Can it change? God willing, because that right now I'd say is cursed ground in many ways. But I'd love to see the ground redeemed and reconsecrated and something great to bloom there. Everyone wants to see that. President Trump obviously put forward that plan for Gaza a few weeks ago. And to me, it was a common sense plan. Nothing has worked there. Pouring billions of dollars into Gaza so Hamas can pocket it and build more tunnels and rockets, that's not going to work. So Trump kind of cut through the clutter and said, wait a minute, why are we doing this again and again and again? Let's try something different. Imagine that. So I want to start with that because it's obviously a very hot story right now, what's happening in Gaza, and just get your opinion. I just want to see what you guys and gals think. Okay, we started down south along the Gaza border, but you saw the title and the thumbnail for this live stream. We got to take it north. Gaza has been getting busy again, right? And things are happening. But the north, the Israel-Lebanon border, has been largely quiet, not completely quiet, but largely under control since the ceasefire was inked between Israel and Lebanon back around Thanksgiving, actually. Hezbollah has been laying low and quite literally licking its wounds since that time. Well, there's been some rumblings over the past week or so. We've seen Hezbollah earlier this week launch projectiles. I think 7 rockets were launched. Now, Hezbollah, by the way, let me preface it by saying this. Hezbollah says, it wasn't us. We didn't do it. Okay. Folks, let me tell you, not one rocket is fired from Lebanon without Hezbollah knowing. Maybe a Hezbollah jihadist didn't push the button and launch the rocket, but Hezbollah knows. Nothing escapes the attention of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon in particular, which is its main power base. So today earlier, 2 more rockets. Now, Israel struck back last week. I mentioned those 7 rockets, but Israel did not strike Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. And know this, that any rocket launched from Lebanon, Israel holds, number one, Hezbollah responsible, but also the government of Lebanon is held accountable by Israel. Because the government of Lebanon, at the end of the day, look, allows Hezbollah to function and operate. There's no other way to say it. Hezbollah, over the past few decades, established a state within a state in Lebanon. And certainly there are sectors of the Lebanese government that support Hezbollah. Others don't, but Hezbollah has a presence there and in the government, and it's a fact. So Israel says, wait a minute. If Hezbollah is a state within the state of Lebanon, maybe the state of Lebanon should be accountable too. So that brings us to today. Times of Israel reports the IDF struck Beirut and southern Lebanon after 2 rockets were fired at northern Israel. These were the first airstrikes on the Lebanese capital, Beirut, since the ceasefire was announced in November. Now, 1 rocket that was fired was intercepted from Lebanon into northern Israel. The second failed to cross the Israel-Lebanon border, and Hezbollah said, we didn't do it. Yeah, right. If you didn't do it, certainly it happened under your very watchful eye. But here's more. According to the Israeli military, 1 of the rockets was intercepted, another fell short, as I said, but rocket sirens sounded in the Israeli city of Kiryat Shimona and in nearby communities near that Lebanon border. By the way, beautiful communities. I mean, picturesque, a great place to vacation, scenic near that Lebanon border. I've been there many times and I love it. And yet we've seen those beautiful communities there evacuated for months, almost a year and a half now, largely evacuated. It's been a nightmare. I was in the north last year. It was a ghost town. But the prayer is, now that Hezbollah has been smashed, look, they're still dangerous, obviously, but they are a shell of what they were. The prayer is that the residents of northern Israel feel safe enough to return home. It's going to be a while, I think. I think psychologically, they want to know that Hezbollah is never going to do anything again, basically, to the magnitude of what it could really before the fall of 2024, when Israel turned its focus to Lebanon and just smashed Hezbollah. It started on September 17th with Operation Exploding Pager, as I call it. It continued to Israel taking out Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, taking out the elite Radwan force, the military leadership of Hezbollah, onto a ground invasion of southern Lebanon and rooting out Hezbollah terror there and pushing Hezbollah back beyond the Litani River, about 18 miles from Israel. So they've been weakened severely, but still, the people in northern Israel are saying, look, if we're going to return to our homes, many of which have been destroyed in places like Metula, near the border, if we're going to return, we want a rock-solid assurance that Hezbollah is not going to fire rocket volleys at us, and even more importantly, perhaps, that Hezbollah will not carry out an October 7 style attack in the north. Because, folks, remember, that was Hezbollah's plan. Hamas acted first. The plan was for all of them to act at once from every border and invade. And Hamas got ahead of everyone. But Hezbollah, for years, had talked about invading the Galilee. And an October 7th attack carried out by Hamas, that's one thing. It's horrible. We saw the results of that. But an October 7th style attack carried out by Hezbollah, it's a different beast entirely. I mean, Hezbollah, before the drubbing it took this past fall, Hezbollah was formidable. Look, they were the elephant in the room, the 800-pound gorilla, I called them. Everyone was warning about Hezbollah. People were scared. People were saying, man, a war between Israel and Hezbollah would be horrific. Hezbollah's got 150,000 at least rockets and missiles aimed at Israel, tens of thousands of well-trained foot soldiers, Iranian backing. And yet, the God of Israel, in miraculous fashion, went ahead of Israel, went ahead of the IDF, and helped strike these incredible blows against Hezbollah, I believe. I mean, some of the things we've seen up north and in the south with Hamas and Gaza, but certainly in the north, I mean, the pager operation in and of itself, it's miraculous that Israel was able to pull that off. I mean, thousands of Hezbollah jihadis, their pagers, and then the next day, their walkie-talkies as well, exploding simultaneously on their persons. I mean, what are the odds that that's going to work? And the way Israel carried out that operation, they got them the pagers. It's miraculous. There's more at work here. But Hezbollah is down but not out. So here's more. This was the second attack within the past week. Few rockets were fired last week, March 22nd. And now you had this morning. And Hezbollah saying, no, it wasn't us. Well, the IDF said, you know what? We hold you accountable. And following the attack, the IDF said that it was carrying out a new wave of strikes on Hezbollah targets in the south. And then later this afternoon, earlier today, they, quote, brought down a building that they said was used by Hezbollah's drone unit in southern Beirut. And that is the Hezbollah stronghold known as Tahia. That's where Hassan Nasrallah was taken out, the Radwan force. So that's a notorious Hezbollah hub. According to the IDF, the building struck in Beirut was used by Hezbollah as a drone storage facility. It belonged to Hezbollah's aerial forces known as Unit 127. The unit is responsible for explosive-laden drone attacks on Israel and flying surveillance drones to collect intelligence. The IDF said, quote, Hezbollah has placed its terror infrastructure in the heart of the civilian population, surprise, surprise, and they're using Lebanese citizens as human shields. And the IDF ordered for the building to be evacuated before it struck it. I mean, this is typical of Israel. Most nations would just bomb the building with no warning. Israel actually gave a heads up and said, we're coming in, we're going to bomb the building, evacuate if you're in there. But Israel's the bad guy. After the rocket attack, Israel's defense minister, his name is Israel Katz, warned that the fate of Kiryat Shimona in Israel is the same as the fate of Beirut, meaning that's a warning. There will be no, if there's no peace in northern Israel, then there will be no peace in Beirut either. And he said the Lebanese government, back to what we were just saying a minute ago, the Lebanese government bears direct responsibility for any attacks on the Galilee. We will ensure the security of the residents of the Galilee and will act forcefully against any threat. Speaking of which, We mentioned Israel. I mentioned Israel taking out Nasrallah, taking out Hezbollah's military leadership. Well, Israel just took out a pretty serious Hezbollah commander last night, or actually Wednesday night. I want to talk about that too. But before I do, let me take a breath and encourage you to subscribe to the channel. If you like what you're hearing, current news, current events, breaking news, mostly out of the Middle East and Israel, but we hit around the globe depending on the news cycle. Be sure to subscribe. And it's from an unapologetically biblical perspective. Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. We passed 1 million subscribers, hard to believe, in the year 2024. And we believe that God has even better things in store for this year, 2025. As we're getting a message of truth out to millions of people around the world for such a time as this, it's a privilege. It's an honor to have this platform and to have all of you here with me, shoulder to shoulder, as watchmen and women on the wall. Okay, Israel struck. An Israeli drone strike Wednesday night resulted in the death of a senior Hezbollah commander. Ahmed Adnan Bajia, a battalion commander in Hezbollah's elite Radwan force, was reportedly killed in the strike in southern Lebanon near the Tyre district. According to the Israeli military, he played a key role in directing numerous attacks against Israel this past year and a half. And he continued to orchestrate efforts to launch terror attacks on the Israeli home front, even during the ceasefire, which, as I said, went into effect back in late November. So he's a big fish, according to Israel. And I mean, folks, the list goes on. Hezbollah's entire leadership has been decimated. Not only Nasrallah, but his replacement and his replacement's replacement, if I'm not mistaken, were all taken out. The military leadership, top commanders, the list goes on and on. So where is Hezbollah now in terms of its strength? And again, this is important because before this fall, we'd be here on this channel in dire tones saying, look, the Great Northern War is coming and it's not going to be pretty. I mean, Hezbollah, the day after the October 7th massacre, on October 8th, 2023, Hezbollah unilaterally, without any provocation from Israel, began firing projectiles, rockets, missiles, drones at Israel. Israel all along said, we don't want to fight on two fronts. We're preoccupied with Gaza. We want to handle Gaza first, then we'll turn our attention to the north. Well, this happened for 11 months. I mean, over 11 months after the October 7th attacks, where Israel basically had a kind of tit for tat thing going on with Hezbollah. Hezbollah would strike Israel. Israel would strike back, some airstrikes perhaps. But it settled into this terrible groove for Israel, where they had about 80,000 people evacuated from their homes in the north, which is simply intolerable. And they got into this groove where Hezbollah, I mean, practically every single day is launching projectiles, and Israel just responds with some airstrikes or some mortar fire, whatever, in return. But Hezbollah was growing and growing in confidence, and they were getting more emboldened. And then finally, Israel got to a point in September where they said, you know what? We're at a point now where things are sufficiently under control in Gaza. Hamas has been sufficiently weakened where we can unleash a whirlwind on Hezbollah. Man, did Israel do exactly that. Hezbollah still doesn't know it hit them. 5 months later, 6 months later, even almost now, Hezbollah still is reeling. It's 6 months, actually. And thank God for that. That was such a weakening to the Iranian regime. That cannot be understated, folks. Hezbollah was Iran's crown jewel. The crown jewel, its nuclear program is its ultimate crown jewel. But in terms of its ring of fire, those proxies that surround Israel on all sides, Hezbollah was the crown jewel. I mean, created by Iran way back in 1982. 43 years of building this terror army. It's an army. It's a terrorist paramilitary organization. It's much more than just this is not some ragtag group of just guys in caves. This was a standing army in some respects. Yeah, they didn't have tanks, but well-trained, well-funded, massive rocket arsenal, drones, a tunnel network from Lebanon into northern Israel, a formidable foe. And Iran spent so much blood and treasure and time and training to train and build Hezbollah up to the point where Hezbollah really had a more powerful military than many nation states in the Middle East. Now that's all gone. Now they're a shell of themselves. They're still dangerous. They still have rockets, but they don't want to pop their heads out in public for fear of being killed by Israel. They're just tremendously weakened. They've been smashed. Still dangerous. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think right now they want any parts of Israel. They're, again, licking their wounds and they're laying low. And they will never be what they were, nor will Hamas. These organizations, these terror organizations that Israel has smashed, they signed their own death warrant on October 7th. They will never be at the level of danger that they once were, I am happy to say. And that ring of fire is unraveled, whether it's in Gaza, in Lebanon, Assad. I mean, Hezbollah, the smashing of Hezbollah led directly to the fall of Assad in Syria. Now, what's replaced Assad ain't much better, Sunni jihadis, but his fall certainly weakened Iran and Hezbollah even further. They've essentially been evicted from Syria, or they're on the road to being evicted from Syria. The new jihadi government does not want to give Iran and Hezbollah leeway to operate there like they once did. So Iran has been weakened severely through all this, and Iran itself, as we've documented here in the live stream, has suffered heavy, heavy blows. Its air defense systems have been destroyed. The list goes on. So I say all that to say, Israel and the U.S., if it wants it, have a clear path to destroy Iran's nuclear weapons facilities. Really, at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. And the U.S. is sending more assets to the region right now, and it feels like something big is coming. And I told you, I've been telling you, 2025 is the year of reckoning for Iran's nuclear weapons program. I don't know that anyone's going to strike that program this year, but I do know that by the end of the year, we're going to know which way the winds are blowing. And whether Israel's going to strike, whether Iran's going to break out and announce they have the bomb and follow the North Korea model, that's the ultimate deterrent, right, if you're nuclear. Whether the U.S. and Israel together are going to strike Iran, or whether there's some sort of grand bargain. Donald Trump is the deal maker, and he's able to get the Ayatollahs to give up their program. But as great of a deal maker as President Trump is, I think the Ayatollahs are dug in. They're not giving that program up. And I think military action seems inevitable, whether it's Israel alone or with support from the U.S. in some fashion. They're going to need support, mid-air refueling, maybe some bunker busters. But I think the outcome here is very bad for the Iranian regime either way. If their nuclear sites are destroyed, they look weak, and maybe the people of Iran can rise up and overthrow them. If they agree to a nuclear deal where they give up with their tail between their legs, their nuclear program, they look weak. Maybe the Iranian people rise up. So be encouraged. And let me leave you with the ultimate encouraging point as we head into the weekend. Iran is a Bible land. Esther, Mordecai, Darius, Cyrus from your Bible, that was ancient Persia, modern day Iran. Number two, there's revival in Iran. The world's fastest growing church right now, largely underground, is in Iran. Imagine that. Only God. You can't stop the gospel. Take that thought into the weekend with you. Have a great weekend. If anything breaks, we'll be back with you. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.